An indie developer is someone who doesn't compromise on what they create for monetary reasons. I grew up in the Scottish countryside, which is not renowned for being a metropolitan centre. I had one friend, I think, in the road that I lived on. Like, the road was an entire town. So computer games became my escape. They became what I did, and that's what I enjoyed doing. I wouldn't sit and watch TV, I wouldn't read books, I played computer games, and that's where I got almost all of my enjoyment. It also made me like quite an introvert, because I'd like just kind of playing games by myself. And so my ZX Spectrum became like my best friend, and I played every single game that was ever released on the ZX Spectrum, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know if this is true or not, but my friend Lee, when I was about 7 or 8 at school, claimed that his brother's friend made Horoscope Skiing, which was a game for the Spectrum. And I'm pretty sure he was lying. But the fact that someone actually makes computer games, that wasn't something I'd ever considered before. I thought like big megalithic corporations made computer games, not actual people. That put the seed in my mind that people made computer games, and maybe somehow I could make a computer game in the future.
5 left Titan, 50. Long 4 right and Titans. And very long 4 left. 30. Long 6 right Titans to 3.
My very first job was working on Colin McRae Rally 3. And I don't really know how, I think there was an administrative error or something, but I joined Codemasters straight from uni as an experienced programmer. And that time at Codemasters was actually probably the most important time for me developing as a programmer, certainly. And so I was very lucky, I got promoted to a position of quite high responsibility. When I was 23, I was actually a lead programmer, which is very young to be in charge of a team. And in hindsight, I was far, far too young. And so I decided to go back home to Scotland, and I worked on a game called APB, which I think to date is the most financially unsuccessful computer game ever released. We spent somewhere in the region of $100 million making a game that sold less than 100,000 copies, which, if you do the maths, is really, really bad. And so at that point I decided that maybe this computer game lark, maybe it's not really for me. And so I came down to London and I got a job working for a film company making tools for post-production on movies. And that was the end of my computer game career. Have you ever thought, what's the worst that could happen? Well, this is Tim Burr. His house is on fire, his hand is alive, calling itself the Fist of Awesome, and woodland deer have become homicidal jerks. Tim and his talking hand find the world as they know it gone, replaced by a horrifying dystopia ruled by morally corrupt bears. They travel through time and space to find the cause of this bear apocalypse. In the past they brawl with mutant velociraptors and gnarly looking cave bears. Fist of Awesome is an epic tale about love, loss, friendship, and punching bear after bear in the face to save humanity. Welcome to the Palace of Dreams. This one bedroom flat is where I Fight Bear Central is. There's a relaxation area, there's a co-working space for working with your indie cohorts. Brilliant. And through here, there's a full-blown office. Oh! Oh! Ah! When I came to London, I had no real intention of ever doing computer games professionally ever again. But one of the things that happened, this is such a random coincidence, I sold all of my belongings when I came down to London. So I sold like my Xbox and all that kind of stuff, and I had like a voucher for a game with like a load of money on it. And so I went to the shop and there was a really beat up looking iPod Touch. And then I knew you could make iPhone or iPod Touch games now. It's like that was a thing. And after a little while, I made a pretty good game. And that led me to think, wow, if I can make a pretty good game by myself in my spare time, maybe I can make a really good game by myself in my spare time. And from that, I was like, oh my god, this could actually work. Like a game where you play a heavily bearded man punching bears in the face. What's not to like about that? And suddenly I had something that could, in theory, turn into an actual business. I could make a game, release it, and potentially make money. It kind of blew my mind a little bit. Like, all of that could be done just me by myself messing around on a computer. Like, all this technology has come around that actually enables very, very small groups of people to do something that required a company before. Like, that's not required anymore. I found that incredibly liberating.
Me and Elliot met at art school. He was originally working on these really beautiful representations of different architectural spaces and lighting techniques and kind of visual trickery around that. And I had been working on little snippets of different kinds of games before Elliot came to me with this idea that involved these LiDAR scans and really interesting point cloud representations of different sorts of structures. Elliot's very interested in situationist ideas about how we read spaces and about how influenced you are by the kind of cultural baggage and meaning of the space. He really wanted this to work in a game that people could explore. We started working on ways of representing points, how that would look in a game. These two different kinds of spaces literally exist on top of each other, and you dial down one and dial up another to be able to sort of combine an urban space with a jungle space and sort of see how that feels. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, mate.
Hey. Hey man, how's it going? Can you hear me? It's just me and Elliot working on the project. We talk on Skype every day, and I think that ability to be able to bounce ideas off each other and maybe get each other out of periods where we're not feeling so inspired or creative, I think it's a really beneficial and useful thing. I also just think it's nice to feel self-directed, that you're doing things that you're personally interested in. I mean, we're not making something that's hugely sort of controversial or edgy, but you get to be much more personal and individualistic in terms of what you want to do, which is going to push boundaries more than if you're having the edges shaved off by business interests. So there's huge benefits, and then there's also some negatives. So we don't have any money. We both live at home with our parents. We're kind of broke. There's like a business side of things that is attached when you're working on your own, and you kind of have to be familiar with that even if you're not the most business-minded person. Something that I really like about games is this idea of showing somebody else the inside of your own mind in a way, or like really putting them into a space that they're immersed by because it's interactive, but it's not a space that is familiar to them. I think that in play, you can communicate a lot of really interesting ideas to somebody that they maybe wouldn't be as receptive to if they were being lectured to, if they were reading a book. Like, I've tutored children who have much less verbal understanding than they do like digital or visual kind of understanding. If you can make something interactive for them, if you can make it into a problem with visual kind of objects that they can manipulate, children are very good at that. So I think there's a huge potential in games, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. I don't know how that's going to develop or change as I try and make different kinds of games.